Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. This time we're going to be talking about a topic that I know a lot of you are thinking about right now. AI and the future of work.
Yeah, it's certainly generating a lot of
Yeah, a
buzz.
lot of buzz. We've gotten a lot of requests from you to cover this. And we've been doing our research, reading a bunch of articles and research papers, even some opinions from, tech CEOs and economists and things like that.
That's a big topic.
It is a big topic, and it's something that I think a lot of people are understandably concerned about.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to break it down for you today,
Yeah.
give you some insights and hopefully some actionable advice too.
Yeah. What's really interesting about AI is that, it's not just about automating specific tasks,
Right.
like a lot of people think.
Right.
It's about automating the process of automation.
Oh, wow.
So, think about that for a second. It's like, it's a chain reaction.
Right.
It's going to hit a lot faster and harder than a lot of people realize.
So you're saying it's not just about, robots replacing factory workers or
Right.
that kind of thing. It's something even bigger than that.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
one of the articles we read pointed out,
Okay.
the changes that we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years are going to completely dwarf anything that's happened in the last 30 years.
Wow.
It's a fundamental shift
Yeah.
in how work gets done, and it's happening across every industry.
Yeah, and we're seeing evidence of this already, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, one of the articles talked about how AI is being used to write scripts for TV shows and movies.
Yeah,
I mean, no wonder the writers are on strike.
right.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've got AI creating marketing materials now,
Wow.
for a fraction of the cost and way faster
Hmm.
than a human can do it. And it's not just, creative fields either. There are banks using AI to run their anti-money laundering programs. I mean,
This is stuff that's already happening.
that is pretty mind-blowing. I think a lot of people listening to this are probably feeling a little anxious right now.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who's worried that AI is going to take their job?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that, yeah, AI is going to change the job landscape.
Right.
Some jobs are going to be lost. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But, history shows us that anytime we have this kind of technological disruption,
Right.
it creates new opportunities too.
Right.
So, think about the transition from horses to cars.
Oh, yeah.
Blacksmiths and stable hands, they might have struggled.
Yeah.
But mechanics and automobile manufacturers, those became the new essential workers.
Yeah, it's like the Industrial Revolution all over again, right?
Exactly.
The whole industries were transformed. And while some people were displaced, ultimately it led to new jobs
Yeah,
and a higher standard of living.
exactly.
So it's not all doom and gloom. It's a shift. It is. It's about being prepared for the shift.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
Yeah.
Which jobs are most likely to be impacted by AI?
Yeah, well, the research that we've done
Okay.
highlights a few key areas. And it might surprise you. It's not just manual labor. We're talking office and administrative roles, legal and financial operations, even sales and customer service positions.
So anything that involves a lot of repetitive tasks
Yeah,
or predictable decision making,
exactly.
AI could potentially do it, faster and cheaper.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
One of the reports actually estimated that AI could automate like a quarter
A quarter.
of all work tasks in the U.S. alone.
Oh, wow.
That's a huge number of jobs potentially affected.
That's a lot of jobs. So things are sounding a little bleak right now.
Wow.
I mean, is there any good news in all of this?
There's always good news.
Okay, I like good news.
Yeah, remember, while some jobs will be lost, new ones are going to emerge.
Okay.
And the people who adapt
Right.
and develop the right skills,
Right.
they're going to be the ones who thrive. Actually, one tech leader, he predicted that liberal arts majors might be in high demand.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
I thought it was all about, STEM skills in the age of AI.
Yeah, that's what most people think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but his point was that, in a world that's overflowing with data,
Right.
it's the uniquely human skills like critical thinking,
Oh.
creativity, the ability to interpret and contextualize information, that's what's going to become really valuable.
So it's not just about, coding and algorithms. It's about, being able to think critically and solve complex problems.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually pretty reassuring for those of us who aren't, tech wizards.
Yeah, and that's just one example. I think we should dive deeper into the specific skills
Right.
that are going to be in high demand in this new AI-driven future.
Yes, let's do that.
And, maybe talk about how people can prepare
Awesome.
for this shift.
All right, well, let's take a quick break and we'll come back. We'll talk all about that.
So one of the sources actually listed out the top 10 skills that employers are going to be looking for.
Oh, wow.
And it's a really interesting mix.
Okay.
So, like, you've got things like creative thinking, analytical thinking, technological literacy, of course, right?
Right.
But then there's also, like, curiosity,
Oh.
lifelong learning, resilience, flexibility. Those are all going to be super
So
important.
it sounds like it's not just about, like, hard skills,
Right.
but also about, like, being adaptable.
Yeah.
Having, like, a growth mindset. It's
Exactly.
like you're not going to learn one skill and then you're set for life.
No. The one constant in the AI era is going to be change. You've got to be comfortable with learning new things,
Mm-hmm.
picking up new tools,
Mm.
shifting gears when the landscape shifts. One of the articles actually used this analogy of like a surfer,
Yeah,
always having to adjust to the waves, and I think that's really apt.
I like that. So it's not just about learning to code. It's about being like a lifelong learner, being curious, being able to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
What else is on that top 10 list?
Let's see. Things like systems thinking, understanding how all the pieces fit together, that's going to be huge. And then, of course, like AI and big data knowledge, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
But also things like self-awareness,
Oh, interesting.
motivation, even talent management, like those are
Ooh.
all going to be incredibly valuable.
So it's almost like the more human skills, the things that AI can't replicate,
Yeah.
those are the ones that are going to become even more important.
Yeah, exactly. Because here's the thing, AI has its limitations. One of the things that we were reading about was, how AI can sometimes generate like completely incorrect information, like it's hallucinating.
Oh, wow.
They called them AI hallucinations.
AI hallucinations, that's kind of creepy, but also kind of funny.
Yeah.
So AI isn't perfect.
No, not at all.
It can make mistakes.
It absolutely can. And that's why we can't just hand over the reins to AI and walk away. We need humans in the loop to make sure that the AI is on track, to interpret the data, to spot the errors, and to make sure that it's being used ethically.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about learning to work alongside AI.
Right.
It's also learning to manage it,
Yeah,
to guide it,
exactly.
to make sure it's being used responsibly.
Yeah, and there are going to be a ton of jobs in that space.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Somebody needs to build these AI systems, train them, maintain them, make sure they're not going off the rails. That's where these like high-paying AI jobs come in.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about those. You mentioned like machine learning engineers,
Yeah.
AI engineers. I mean, those sound pretty intimidating.
They can be, but there's a whole spectrum of roles in the AI field. Data scientists, computer vision engineers, natural language processing engineers. And it's not just about like the technical side either. You need people who can manage these teams, develop AI products, consult with businesses on how to implement AI effectively.
So there's actually a lot of variety in the types of AI jobs that are out there.
Oh yeah, tons.
And it's not just for like hardcore techies.
No, not at all. And the salaries for these roles,
Okay.
they're sky high right now.
Okay, I'm all ears.
All right, so think about roles like machine learning engineers, data scientists, computer vision engineers, natural language processing engineers. All of these are seeing incredible demand.
Mhm.
And then there's the whole management side. You've got AI product managers, AI consultants, business development managers focused on AI. Like the list goes on and on.
It's amazing to think about all the new career paths that are opening up because of AI.
Mm,
But for somebody who's, maybe not a tech expert,
yeah,
how do they even begin to prepare for this kind of future?
that's a great question. And, the good news is there are so many resources available now. Online courses, boot camps, even free tutorials. You can learn about AI and data science without having to go back to school for a computer science degree.
So it's really about being proactive,
Mm-hmm.
taking the initiative to learn these new skills,
Yeah,
and not waiting for like somebody to tell you what to do.
exactly. And the sooner you start, the better prepared you'll be, for whatever the future holds. One of the sources talked about this idea of anticipating changes, and I think that's key. We
Yeah.
can't just wait for the AI wave to hit us. We need to be riding it.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about, the skills that are going to be in demand,
Yeah.
the new jobs that are being created, the importance of adaptability and lifelong learning. But I think a lot of people are still wondering,
Yeah.
like, what does all of this mean for me and my job? How do I know if I'm at risk of being replaced by AI?
That's a question that each person is going to have to answer for themselves, but I think it's helpful to look at like the broader trends.
Ah.
So if your job involves like a lot of routine tasks, data entry, predictable decision making,
Right.
those are the types of jobs that are most susceptible to automation.
So if you're basically a robot in human form,
Yeah,
you might want to start thinking about upskilling or reskilling.
that's one way to put it. But even jobs that require like more complex skills
Hmm?
are going to be impacted by AI in some way.
So no one's really immune to this AI revolution.
Not really, but that doesn't mean we should all panic.
Right, right. We've talked about a lot of positive things too, like the new jobs being created, the potential for AI to make our lives easier. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom.
Exactly. It's about being informed, being prepared, and most importantly, being willing to adapt.
I think that's a great message to leave our listeners with.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I'd love to hear like your final thoughts on this whole AI and the future of work thing. What are you most excited about? What are you most worried about?
That's a big question. Um, I think what excites me the most is the potential for AI to solve some of the world's biggest problems. We're talking climate change, disease, poverty. I mean, AI could help us make incredible breakthroughs
Yeah.
in these areas.
That's a really hopeful perspective. What about your worries?
Well, I think the biggest concern is that AI could be used to exacerbate existing inequalities. If we're not careful, AI could concentrate wealth and power in the hands of a few,
Right.
leaving many behind.
That's a really important point. It's not enough to just develop the technology.
Right.
We need to make sure it's being used ethically
Yes.
for the benefit of all humanity.
Exactly. We need to be having these conversations now, involving everyone in the discussion, so that we can shape a future where AI is a force for good in the world.
I think that's a great note to end on. But before we wrap up completely,
Yeah.
I'd love to get your take on something. One of the sources mentioned this idea that the next generation of workers is going to need to be like incredibly adaptable, like more adaptable than any generation before them.
Hmm.
Do you think that's true?
I think it's inevitable. The pace of change is only accelerating, and, the jobs of the future might not even exist yet.
So how do we prepare ourselves and our children for that kind of world?
I think it starts with fostering a love of learning,
Yeah.
a sense of curiosity, a willingness to embrace change.
Those are great qualities to cultivate. And honestly, those are things that benefit us no matter what the future holds.
Exactly. It's about being adaptable, resilient, and always striving to learn and grow.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
Yeah.
But before we say goodbye, I have one last question for you. We've talked a lot about the big picture, but what about the individual?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody who's listening to this? Feeling a little overwhelmed maybe by all this talk about AI and the future of work?
I would say don't panic. Take a deep breath and focus on what you can control. Start by assessing your own skills and interests.
Okay, that's a good starting point. What else?
Think about the industries that are likely to be impacted by AI. Start exploring ways to upskill or reskill in those areas.
So be proactive.
Yes,
Take ownership of your own career path and don't wait for someone to tell you what to do.
exactly. And remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
We don't have to figure everything out overnight.
Nope.
It's about taking small steps, staying curious, and being open to new opportunities.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are so many resources available, from online courses to career counselors to people in your own network who can offer guidance and support.
That's great advice, and I think a really empowering message. We may not be able to predict the future, but we can certainly prepare for it.
Exactly. And the more prepared we are, the more likely we are to thrive in this exciting, albeit somewhat uncertain future.
It's funny, we talk about AI as if it's this like mysterious force out there,
Right.
but really it's just a tool.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of, our own ingenuity.
That's a great point. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Right.
It all comes down to, the choices we make,
Yeah.
the values that we embed in these systems, and how we decide to use them.
Yeah. One of the sources actually talked about the need to teach AI ethics,
Oh, wow.
like, the difference between good and evil.
Mm,
And it almost sounds comical,
yeah.
like, something out of a sci-fi movie, but it really underscores the importance of, responsible development.
It does. It raises so many questions. Like,
Yeah.
what does it even mean to teach a machine about ethics?
Right.
I mean, it really forces us to examine our own values and how we translate those values into a language that AI can understand.
It's almost like, holding up a mirror to
Yeah.
ourselves, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're forced to confront our own biases, our own assumptions,
Yeah.
and really ask ourselves, like, some tough questions about what kind of world we want to build.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the most fascinating things about this whole AI revolution.
Yeah.
It's not just about technological advancement. It's about like societal evolution. We're being challenged to think differently about work, about our values, about what it means to be human in a world where machines are becoming increasingly intelligent.
Yeah, one thing that really struck me from all this research
Yeah,
was just like how fast everything is moving.
right.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and think, oh, AI, that's still way off in the future.
Yeah,
But it's already here.
it's already happening.
It's transforming industries and people's lives. I
Absolutely.
mean, for me, the thing that was really mind-blowing was like realizing that even creative professions aren't immune
Right.
to AI's influence.
Mm.
Like the idea that AI could be writing scripts or composing music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exhilarating,
It is.
but it's also a little unsettling.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
It does.
Like, what does it even mean to be creative
Yeah.
in a world where machines can seemingly do it all?
Right. And maybe AI will become like a collaborator,
Hmm.
like a tool that helps us unlock new levels of creative expression that we never even dreamed possible. Almost like having, you know, a superpowered brainstorming partner.
That's an interesting way to look at it. And it kind of speaks to this idea that we don't have to view AI as a threat.
Right.
You know, we can choose to see it as an opportunity, a challenge, and ultimately a reflection of our own potential.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one message you want to leave our listener with today?
I would say embrace the change. Don't be afraid of it. Stay curious. Stay adaptable. And never stop learning. The future is unfolding right now, and we all have a role to play in shaping it.
That's a great message. And on that note, we will leave you to ponder all the possibilities and the challenges that lie ahead. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AI and the future of work.
It's been fun.
It has been fun. We hope you found it insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep imagining the possibilities.